This year in reality TV and pop culture felt loud, not even dramatic, just loud. And at some point I realized I wasn't always watching because I was entertained. I was watching kind of out of habit. So this isn't a recap of every show or every headline from the year. It's not a best of or a worst of or a awards ceremony. It's more about what stuck with me, what started to feel off, and the moment I realized I was losing patience with some of these franchises. Welcome back to the Living on the Verge podcast. It's me, Virginia. I hope everybody had a fabulous Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa season. It is currently the last day of the year 2025. And I, for one, am ready to say, good riddance. It's been a good year, but it's been a long year. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about. I just want to thank you for being here and supporting me all year long. I really appreciate your listenership, and I really feel grateful to have this platform where people want to hear. Sometimes you like what I have to say, sometimes you don't, but you want to hear, and that means a lot to me. So let's talk a little bit about what this episode is and what it isn't. Okay, first let's talk about what it isn't. It will not be every single franchise. It will not be all of TLC, all of Bravo, and all of reality TV combined. It won't be let's rank our favorite Housewives or let's rank our top 10 episodes. It won't be let's name the funniest this, that, or the worst moment of this or that. What it will be is what stuck with me and why. And what I plan to unstick in 2026. So first, let's talk about the honest to goodness reality TV fatigue that I am experiencing as we approach the end of the year. The most obvious one to me was Real Housewives of Potomac. I was so excited about this show coming back. I think that they have some of the most fascinating ladies. I love the houses that these girls live in. The fashion always cracks me up. Well, except for Giselle, because she struggles a little, but I think she hired a fashion, what are they called? The people who do your fashion, whatever. I think she hired one of those because she certainly did come up this season with regards to her wardrobe. So let's back off a little bit on Giselle. But the thing is, I was really excited about this. With all of the buzz going around about how it would be with Karen gone and that there were going to be some new people and so on and so forth, I was really excited until I wasn't. Potomac essentially lost me. I am still at the moment struggling to get through, I think it's like episode 3, maybe 4. I don't know if it is the new cast that they've got on there or if it is that it has gotten old and tired for me. I'm really frustrated with the fact that Giselle gets to get away with things that 90% of the other housewives couldn't get away with. You don't ever get to hear about her dating or about what's going on with her personal life unless she wants to throw you a little nugget, and then she'll say something. But honestly, it's just too much buffoonery. Listen, to be fair, we all know that these shows have a tendency to break out and screaming and arguing, and that's kind of why we tune in. But this show took that recipe to a whole other level this season. And I found myself sitting there. At first, I was trying to watch for the podcast so that I could recap for you. And I remember, I think it must have been episode 1 or probably 2, that I kept rewinding and I kept rewinding because I could not hear the dialogue. And even the closed captions were confused because there was so much screaming overlapping other screaming that I remember thinking, how do you even recap this? And how do you even justify having spent this much time out of your day, meaning my day, to try to tell people about something that really there is no rhyme or reason to? It's just a bunch of ladies cackling and screaming and yelling and, you know, going off on somebody. It just didn't do it for me. And so, alas, I made a conscious decision to not podcast on Potomac this season, and I'm kind of glad, because one of the things that I'm struggling in this age of reality TV fatigue is having to force myself to do something when I'm not being given material that's worth doing anything with. And maybe I'm being too hard on Bravo and TLC and reality TV in general, but I don't think so, guys, because there are some good shows out there that I religiously watch that I'm very excited to tune into. I just don't think that it was this one this year. And so that's part of where my fatigue, started. And then I struggled with, I'm going to say it, and I've said it before on this podcast, I am a way back to season 1, episode 1, Real Housewives of Orange County diehard fan. I love all the OGs. Okay, I tolerate Vicky, but I love all of the OGs. And honest to goodness, I struggled with the OC this season. Now, for the most part, there was a lot of content this season, but one of the struggles I had were that the relationships never seemed to advance. There never seemed to be any resolve. If one person said that they thought that they were okay, then 2 episodes later, they were saying, I thought we were okay. I mean, there was just no cohesion in the way the season came together. I was really disappointed in the Gretchen and the Tamra of it all, and the direction that Gretchen and, I'll say it, Slade decided to take her, I'm going to call it a performance on the season. I was really upset about that. But as much as I like Tamra, and I know that that's not a popular opinion, about mid-season, I started thinking to myself, okay, Tamra, the victim, woe is me, I'm having a bad year mentality and that narrative, it's not working anymore. You're coming across as, entitled, as if, well, you're going through something, so therefore everybody around you must just accept how you choose to behave. And it kind of got on my nerves. And honestly, there were just a lot of little things that bothered me. Heather not really living in Orange County, but still being on Orange County and being very open about the fact that she really doesn't want to be on Orange County. Shannon kind of filling air. Like, why is Shannon on this show? Emily just deciding to be confrontational at every turn. Emily is for sure in my top 5 housewives. And you guys, word on the street is she is not being invited back for season 20. I almost didn't even want to verbalize that, but it's definitely out there. I really hope it's not true. I think that even though she got a little campy and a lot emotional this season and really super messy, I still think she's good for the franchise. I still think she moves storyline. I think she's not afraid to ask the hard questions. So if this is true about her leaving us for season 20, that's going to make me really sad. And I know that the only person who knows for sure that they're coming back is Vicky. And how I feel about that is neither here nor there. On a personal level, I really struggle with Vicky. So read between the lines there. But as far as a housewife, honestly, I think she's entertaining as long as she doesn't go down some dark rabbit hole with, yet another poor bleeding heart man that she's trying to save or fix or change. She seems pretty happy in her relationship with her current boyfriend, and they've been together for a while, and I'm hoping that she'll have a really good season. But I really just struggled with the fact that when all was said and done, you had Jen pedantry at first seat, which said so much about the way the season went down. And so we'll see what happens with Orange County. Maybe it was just my fatigue with reality TV in general. But to be fair, I did get a lot of comments about, people being kind of burned out with OC, and maybe OC. I think it had had such a good season 18 that the expectations were through the roof for season 19, especially with Gretchen coming back. And then it just fell flat, and it went somewhere that we just really didn't want it to go. I mean, the lie detectors of it all. Who needed a lie detector test? The gang ups. Every time somebody, would turn against someone, half of the cast would gang up on those people too. And for me, that was kind of a turning point. I just thought, I enjoy watching these shows, and here's why I enjoy them. Because it's mindless television. I don't have to think through. I don't have to follow a plot. I don't have to remember from week to week what happened, because at the end of the day, we know they're going to go somewhere, they're going to eat something, and then they're going to fight. And then they're going to make up, rinse, and repeat next week, toss in a couple of trips, and there is the recipe for the Housewives franchise, right? I'm good with that. But then suddenly it just started to get ugly and contentious. And instead of feeling relaxed when I was watching, I was starting to feel that look between your fingers look, because you want to watch, but you really don't want to see what's going on. And I just didn't like that. It got to where I was feeling like watching was, feeling more obligatory rather than fun and intentional. And the same could be said. I've come down a lot on Bravo, but TLC, I could say the same thing about your 90-day franchise. I really, really enjoy watching this show because, especially The Other Way, because they go to all these different fabulous countries, some not so fabulous, but you get to see how others live. And I kind of love that. I love to see the food and the fashion and all of the things. But this season, 90 Day Fiance went on overdrive, and I really want to believe in this franchise because there are some really cute couples, and also it's just a fun show for me to watch. But when Guillermo and Cara got separated, I lost all faith in the franchise. I thought those two were ride or die. I thought they were going to be forever. Word on the street is they are going to be on Last Resort. We'll have to wait and see. But again, I miss the fun. I miss the fun of it all. So hopefully, maybe next season we can bring some of that back. All of a sudden, you guys, it felt like Bravo was eating itself. Honestly, we had bloggers with storylines and appearances, and what in the heck was going on? How did we start to have content about content? If you think about it, we spent half a season on Orange County, maybe even more than that, and some time through the reunion, rehashing it, of course, talking about Kiki Monique. And listen, I'm not a hater. I love Kiki Monique. I like her takes on things. I don't listen to her podcast, but every now and then she will guest with Sheena, and I'll catch one of those. I don't understand, however, why, if we were so concerned about not breaking the fourth wall, all of a sudden we have a fifth wall that we are opening ourselves up to called bloggers. Okay, that's another thing that really became part of the Bravoverse this last year of 2025. Bloggers. When was the last time you met a blogger? it's kind of a now defunct word. I feel like it's obsolete. So I think that what they meant was content creators, but nonetheless, it made me laugh a little bit that the word bloggers came out and became so, I don't know, out there all year. Like even on Instagram, people were saying this blogger knew this and this blogger knew that. And I was thinking, these aren't blogs, but what do I know? I mean, what do I know? So yeah, it seems that with all of this, the fourth wall is for sure gone. And I'm going to tell you, I am one of those people that liked that part of it. So although I don't like the content creators infiltrating the Bravoverse or any of the other reality TV shows for that matter, let me just say that, I kind of love when the reality stars themselves break the fourth wall. And this is one of the things that I like about Shannon Bedore. It wasn't just this season, last season as well. She would go off her rocker, walk straight off set, walk straight up to a producer, didn't care that it was being filmed, and speak her mind. And I kind of loved that breaking the fourth wall moment. You know, having said all of that, I'm still struggling with the fatigue. I really am. But let's talk about what worked over the last year. I've spent, 15 minutes or so kind of telling you what I didn't like and what I was tired of. Let's talk a little bit about what I thought did work. Let's talk about who I thought was authentic. So this one won't surprise you. Emily Simpson, Real Housewives of Orange County, in my opinion, had the most vulnerable and authentic season ever. Now, with that being said, I still felt like she could be a little trivial and a little performative. For example, the egg in her handbag. I thought that was dumb, but she got vulnerable, emotional, and real. She talked about fear that she was going to have to go through a divorce because of all the issues that they were going through with their son Luke, who at that time had not yet been diagnosed. And when I tell you how touching it was to see Emily in this vulnerable state, she's a strong woman. She's a badass bitch. She speaks her mind. She's an attorney. She's articulate. She's not afraid. She doesn't cower. And then you just saw this other side of her. And I'm going to say it. I just saw fear and vulnerability. And I guess fear of the unknown. That's what, in my opinion, she played out to us this season. Whether it was when she was snapping somebody's head off for something they had said, or doing some stupid silly move like putting an egg in her handbag at a restaurant to take it home for later because she's the queen of snacking. All of those things to me alluded to a woman who was really struggling on a personal level, having real life issues. Life was lifing and she was just trying to do her job and get through. And that's what I saw. But she caught a lot of flack. And like I said, word on the street is she may be on the chopping block. So apparently my mouth doesn't work either, but I meant chopping block. Now, here's one of the other bonuses. Aside from the fact that Emily said on the reunion that it was a viewer who DM'd her and told her to have Luke checked, that ultimately led to his diagnosis. Not only did she benefit in that way, but there were so many parents that benefited from her being vulnerable and honest enough to share Luke's symptoms, talk about all the stuff that, nobody really wants to talk about because we all want the world to think that we have a perfect family until we don't. This woman took the time to get outside of her comfort zone, talk about things that made a difference to other parents. There is evidence that she has helped a lot of people. There's been, I know she herself has said that she has received a lot of thank yous and accolades from people who, were it not for her sharing this story on TV, they would not have known that their kids had ARFID, or they would not have known that their kids were displaying signs of being on the spectrum or of having an eating disorder. So that's one thing that I am going to say. Had it not been for the fact that she put herself out there and she, there was a lot of talk about whether it was her right to share Luke's business. But at the end of the day, his diagnosis came sooner because she did. And that vulnerability, that did something. What didn't seem authentic? Well, Shannon Bedore, for sure. I mean, her antics and her Spanx and I'm so over it. It used to be funny and charming, I guess, because she actually had a storyline, and those moments kind of detracted or what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, deterred us for even just a moment from the seriousness of the divorce with David or the cheating scandal or whatever. And then that became her storyline, playing with her Spanx or playing with her dogs or, these gotcha moments that she just thought were going to come across as hilarious and hysterical. I found them performative. If you don't agree, you can shoot me a DM, but don't come at me. Now, who else? You're going to be surprised by this, and I already alluded to it a little bit, but Tamra Judge, she surprised me this season. She did not come across as authentic as she normally does, even though I still find her authentic. I think that she hid behind, I'm sorry to say this, but Teddy's diagnosis as part of a reason to pretend like she was growing when she really wasn't growing. And so to me, that was inauthentic. And by the end of the season, it was kind of tiresome. Everybody else was tired of her quitting the show too, which to me, if I were Andy Cohen and Bravo and Shed Media and all of those people, I'd be pissed at Tamra because it took a lot for her to come back and it was kind of a big deal. And her constantly quitting was kind of an FU to the show in the moment, even if there was a good reason for it. Like, show a little bit of respect for your job. But the most performative person this season to me was Julia. That girl, she must have known that it was all going to go downhill for her because she spent the first part of the season trying to pretend that she was, a perfect adoptive mom. And I'm not coming after her parenting. I don't know what kind of a parent she is. But what I do know is that it looked very phony, very fake, very staged. The photos for the girls and, it was too much. And then when things started to go south between her and Adriana, instead of her keeping personal business personal, she just threw it all out there. But almost in such a way that was giving to me, I know this is my last season if I don't step it up. And as a result, she really said way more than, in my opinion, anyone should ever have to say in order to be a part of that show. I think that she sacrificed her marital integrity just to have a storyline, just to have something to say to get herself out of an awkward moment. Not just during the season, but especially during the reunion. And so I think she was really bad. But the only person who was as bad, if not worse, was Adriana. Adriana, oh my gosh, I was at BravoCon for the moment when she did the whole stop the entire panel because she was looking for somebody to bring her the coffee maker that she was going to have a big moment with. Girl, come on. I like you, Adriana. I'm the one who has been wanting you to have a mojito, remember? Why you gotta go mess with people who have your back by doing stupid shit like that? It was too much. It was too try hard. That I did not like. Now, who felt real? Well, not Heather. Heather is still being, in my opinion, performative. I think she just likes being on television. And this is from someone who likes Heather. I met both her and Terry. They're very nice people. I had a nice conversation. She did come across a teeny weeny bit elitist, but it's to be expected, I suppose. And yet, I don't think that she was being real with us this season. I think that it's very interesting how she has breadcrumbs shared with us, things that she wants us to know. For example, the strong stance that she has for the LGBTQI plus community. We made sure that we saw her being charitable and doing that. But yet, even though she's a very big advocate for the community, she doesn't really talk about it openly. It's just like one day we woke up and we realized that she was very proud of her queer and non-binary kids. I don't know how we got here without seeing any of the in the meantime. So in my opinion, that did not ring authentic. But who did feel real? Okay. How about Marisol? Marisol is always real. She might need a little help from Alexia to get the words out, but she's real. I don't ever think that I find myself wondering, like, is that how she really feels? No. Who else? Well, Brittany Bateman, of course. I don't think that girl would know how to be fake. She could be a little performative, like with the unicorn and the bear and the singing and the clink, clink, clink and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, she just is who she is. She behaved the exact same way on camera as she did on the panels at BravoCon, as she did if you ran into her in the crowd. So I think she's pretty much on the side of I'm authentic. Who else I found incredibly real and authentic this last season? Jennifer Pedrentry. I thought she had an amazing season, and that says a lot because if you go back to the early episodes of this podcast, was not the biggest Jen fan. And I also thought newcomer Tia, for whatever part of Potomac I did watch, was super likable, super authentic. And you could tell she wasn't there with anything to prove. She was just there because she wanted to be there. And she was making a show. She still had her real life. She had other things going on. And it did not seem in any way, shape, or form inauthentic. So I kind of wish I'd have been able to stick it out with Potomac. And I still will. I'll go back and watch blah, 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 blah. But if only to see how Tia is, faring as the season progresses. And, at the end of the day, it just seems to me that you can feel when someone is living their life versus playing a role of their life, right? So let's talk about who was playing a role versus who was just being themselves. Well, I think Angel on Potomac, I don't know what that girl came to do. Now, to be fair, I think she got a pretty crappy edit with the whole Airbnb that she didn't rent for long enough, that everybody's blowing her up about, blah, blah, blah. Listen, Meredith over in Salt Lake is renting every year, and I don't hear that being fodder for making fun of her anymore. I mean, every now and then somebody pokes about it, but it's just what these people do from time to time. Now, the fact that this lady just showed up because apparently they're getting ready to relocate, blah, 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 I don't know that I believe that. She came across very unprepared for what she took on. Then I started thinking about like casting choices that just genuinely confused me over the course of the last year. And the first one that came to mind, this might surprise you, was Giselle on Love Hotel. Why? Because I knew from the moment that that girl walked on there, she wasn't going to walk away with a man. She was there for the paycheck and the screen time and the outfits, which, by the way, kudos, whoever styled her on that show really upped her game. She looked beautiful the entire time. However, Giselle, you didn't belong on Love Hotel, friend. You had no intention, and I was right because you walked away empty-handed. So although casting Giselle on Love Hotel was really confusing to me, I still think that Angel on Real Housewives of Potomac was one of those casting choices that I just quietly shook my head at. I didn't understand it. I still don't. And maybe I'm being unfair, but for now, I'm going to stick to that because that's how I feel. Now, let's talk about pop culture moments that really took up a lot of airspace that I think were maybe a little overblown. And I'm going to start with the Paige and Craig breakup. Now, to be fair, I do watch Summer House off and on. I do not watch Southern Charm. And so I don't know a ton about the Craig side of things, although I know enough about the Paige side of things to formulate an opinion. At the end of the day, I don't understand why this was a 4 or 5 month conversation. I just don't get it. I also didn't understand why we spent the better part of a year talking about Justin and Blake. I don't get it. Now, I think the story was supposed to get a lot bigger than it got, and it just didn't. And because of the lawsuits of it all and the A-list nature of Blake Lively, it turned into a humongous mountain. But honestly, to me, it was still a molehill. And another one that I just don't understand, even though I'm really glad it finally happened, I don't understand why it's such a big deal, was Kyle Richards' "I could take Brad or I could take Angelina" comment. We kind of already knew this was coming, and I feel like it didn't land for me because it was 3 years in the making and we already knew, and so it fell flat. That's my humble opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but that's what I think. For me, I prefer those awkward, human, kind of unpolished moments that once it's said, you're like, oh, that was a slapper. You know what I mean? But it doesn't feel rehearsed or planned. It's those moments that when you are listening to them come out of whatever cast member's mouth, you can tell that they already have the t-shirts printing. Those are the ones that they just rub me the wrong way. And I wish we could get away from these performative moments because to me, they just live on and on and on, and they're overblown. And granted, that's what they're supposed to do. They're intended to go viral and make people money, yada, yada. I don't care. I want to go back to the days of if you saw it on a t-shirt, it was because somebody said it without really thinking, and it caught on after. That's what I want. Okay, well, let's move into when things went deeper. I'm going to touch on two things. One is positive and one is negative. So they always say, do you want the good news first or the bad news first? And I like to say, I'll take the good news only, please. But that's not reality. So it seems to me that I should start with the good news in this case, which we already talked about a little bit. And that was how the fact that something as simple as a reality TV show could have such a long reach to a community that doesn't even watch the TV show. And by that, I'm referring to the many children that Luke Simpson helped by his mom sharing his story and his plight on the show. In my opinion, this is one of those moments that should last and should go on, and we should continue to talk about. These are the moments that can affect change and can actually help people. Unlike Remember Mama Reba? Well, in my opinion, some of the things she said and some of the things she did on Beverly Hills, not really this season that just started, but towards the tail end of last season, which was at the early part of the year, were just bigoted. I said it. I felt she was bigoted, and shame on the producers, because letting this air and even bringing her back this season, to me, tells me that the producers are okay with letting bigotry go unchecked. So that might be a hot take, but after much thought, I would prefer not to see Mama Reba on my television ever again. Yep, that's my opinion about that one. And let's talk a little bit more about how this forced chaos is just exhausting viewers. Not just me, but viewership is down, you guys. It's down all across the board. And it's even down with new shows, new old shows. Vanderpump Rules Season 12 is falling flat. And I hate to say that because I wanted these kids to succeed. I'm close enough to LA that I can, I've met most of them and I can go visit and I can go eat there. And I'm sad to say that I don't think SUR's going to last or, survive if the show doesn't survive. So a part of me is really sad about that. But another part of me can clearly see that I think we do just have a little bit of reality TV exhaustion. And I think it's really important that these Bravo Lebs realize that vulnerability can still work. And I know that that might be really hard to prove, given that I've spent a lot of this podcast telling you how happy I am that Emily was vulnerable, but now her job may be on the line. But we don't know that the two are related. And oh, by the way, regardless of whether she comes back next season or not, she still helped and touched a lot of people. So I will still stand by that statement that being vulnerable as a Bravo Leb can be beneficial and good for your image and for your place on the show. The other thing is, viewers aren't stupid. And when you're being performative, we can tell. We know you're being performative. We can tell when you've practiced things like, there's the door, Shannon Bador. It's just, don't insult us that way. Maybe that's what my fatigue has to do with, is that, my son told me a long time ago, Mom, you need to have a different kind of a podcast because I know you watch reality TV, but honestly, I think you're too intellectual for this kind of television. And I just laughed at him and I said, well, I watch this kind of television because I don't have to be intellectual in order to consume it. And I really firmly believe that. But now I'm starting to think that my son might have been onto something, and that might be why I am struggling with such fatigue. Who knows? It is better, in my opinion, to have an authentic mess than to have phony order or a clean and, perfectly nice progression of a storyline that is complete and total bullshit. So in my opinion, I would like us to go back to the season 6 and 7s of Beverly Hills, Orange County. There's one show that honestly did not fall flat, is not falling flat. And unless something changes, I don't think is going to fall flat for a long, long time in the Bravoverse. And that is the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Say what you will. These girls are campy. They're performative. They wear costumes. They are, backbiting with one another. And yet, for some reason, this damn show is so entertaining to me. I don't know if it's the mix of the cast members, if it's their convoluted yet not at all deep storylines, if it's the toxic friendships, or if it's this season at least, the underlying drama that we are only seeing behind the scenes, like the Bronwyn and Todd breakup or the Brittany and Jared of it all. I don't know what it is, but this one is still working for me. And I honestly can't wait to watch it every week. So that tells me that there is still hope for our wonderful Bravo universe. And it also tells me that watching all of this kind of changed how I think about consumption. It made me realize that maybe I need to make some changes in 2026 to what I take in, because if I am spending time being frustrated and angry that these shows aren't giving me what I need, then shame on me for just continuing to tune in. Now, of course, we have this podcast we have to cover, but I have a feeling if I'm feeling some sort of fatigue, so are you. So I think that the best thing to do would be to kind of sit and ruminate with how I really feel about these shows, how much of them I want to consume in 2026, and what I intend to do with that time that was once spent consuming all of this content. Now, I'm still going to be here doing this podcast, and we're still going to cover all of our favorite shows, but it just seems to me like there are some things that need to be left behind in 2025. And one of those things would be wasting my time watching shows that don't bring me happiness. In fact, I think we need to leave all things in 2025 that don't bring us happiness. If you have the option to leave it behind, leave it behind. Just take with you what works, what brings you happiness, and what makes you laugh. Joy is so important in our lives. It can make the difference between, living and not living, really. So this tells me that I'm evolving as a human being. It tells me that life is ever changing. Our tastes change. I think it says like our taste buds legitimately change every 7 years. So they always say, like if you didn't like something, try it every now and then, because you never know when your taste buds are about to make that change and you might like it after all. Well, I think my taste buds may or may not be changing. So we'll see what of this I decide to carry forward into 2026 and what of it I will leave behind in 2025. I'll be back to talk a little bit more about all of that on the next episode. For now, please stay safe out there. I hope you had a fabulous 2025. I really am grateful for all of my listenership. And I was trying to think of what to call you because, everybody has their nickname for their listeners. And I was wrecking my brain. And then it was just so obvious. Those of you who have been with me since the very beginning, you're my lifers. So, lifers, Happy New Year. I'll catch you on the other side, where I intend to make that shift from chaos to balance. And we'll talk through that together next. But until then, I will be here living on the verge. Happy New Year.